Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast, your new favorite World War II podcast. For those serial listeners, you may notice that today's Saturday when we publish this, and it's not going out on a Sunday, and there's a very good reason for that, but we will get to that shortly. And joining us today is a very special guest, and he's the reason why we are hosting this episode on a Saturday. Chris Camerato. Chris, how are you doing today?
Okay, it's good to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get to the reason why you're here and the anniversary of the event in which you want to talk about, let's get a little bit of background on you. I understand you enlisted into the Navy at an early age. Let's start there.
I went at 17 in 1978. I remember joining, and I had to have both parents sign for me. My father signed for me with one hand, and then he signed my mother's name with the other hand because she was crying. And it's a long time ago, but I joined on September 1978.
The year I was born.
So I was 17 years old and went right to boot camp. Great Mistakes, or Great Lakes, Illinois. Which that's where it was freezing out there. But by the time the coldest winter I ever spent was in Great Lakes, Illinois.
Now, to be quite honest with you, I am a little ignorant on the boot camp process for the Navy. Most of my research, obviously, is for World War II, but is also with Army and the Marine Corps, which, yes, the Marine Corps is a division of the Navy. But go through the enlistment process as far as the boot camp and then the training and then the assignment of the Navy, if you would.
Back then I think there was three boot camps: San Diego, Great Lakes, Illinois, and Orlando. And I was in New York, and I think the women was in Orlando, and then all the West Coast went out to in San Diego, and I ended up in Chicago, Great Lakes, Illinois, and it was I think it was 3 months. The whole thing was 3 months long, and again it was all guys, and now it's co-ed. And I remember going to boot camp with Saudi Arabians. They had a company of Saudi Arabians back then. They were Navy fighters, but first they wanted them to go to boot camp. And I was in Company 259. I was all kinds of guys from all over the country, and I had no issues with it. The chow was it took you about 7 days before anything kicked in. They made you eat fruit, so you would go to the bathroom.
Now, obviously, one of the key differences between, let's say, an Army boot camp and the Navy boot camp is obviously if you're going to be in the Navy, you're going to be on the ship and waterbound, and I'm assuming they put a little more emphasis on waterborne training and things like that and getting used to being in confined spaces, or am I just making that up?
No, there was swimming. They threw you off the 20-foot thing into the pool, and I could swim. A lot of guys couldn't, but they faked it. And it was a lot of firefighter training. That was the deal there. They put you in the building. They put an OBA on, which is an oxygen breathing apparatus. They put an OBA on you. They sit you in the building, and then so you breathe for a while, and then the guy would come in and he would yank it off your face, and you would feel for 30 seconds you would feel how it is to be inside a burning building and you choke and you go out, you throw up, and that's how you learned.
So, you completed your boot camp, you completed your training, and then you got your assignment. Where did you get assigned to?
They posted it up. Everybody got all over the place, all over the world, and I looked at my name, and it was the USS Nimitz, and I had no idea what a Nimitz was. I think I remember hearing about the Nimitz. He was a big time admiral in World War II.
That's correct.
And I had no idea that I was going to the nuclear flagship of the Seventh Fleet.
And once this realization came to you that you were going to be on the largest vessel as far as aircraft carriers go, was it shock? Was it excitement? Was it, okay, well, it is what it is, let's roll with it? I mean, how did you feel when you finally realized where you're going?
Well, as far as the other guys, a lot of them got to tin cans and destroyers, and they went to training or schooling. I went right to the fleet, and I had absolutely no idea what this was going to be. I had none at all. So it was a total surprise to me when we got there.
Now, just to back up a little bit, because once again, as I said, I'm a little naive on the Navy boot camp. When it comes to those who served on submarines, is that voluntary, or is that something they choose you for based on skills that they notice during boot camp?
I think it's the ASVAB. Everything's you test. What you get is score. The higher you get the test, score that when you take the initial test to get into the Navy, pretty much you're eligible for these 5 things. If you do this, if you get a score like this, you're eligible for 10 things, and so on and so forth. But the submarine, you had to be for claustrophobic and stuff. Mm-hmm. There was special training. Absolutely, there was special training for that.
could you foresee yourself ever serving on a sub?
My father was in World War II. He was at Normandy, and I figured if it was good enough for Pops to serve for his country, it was good enough for me. So I just wanted to do my time.
And obviously, guys of that generation, World War II, they don't talk a whole lot about it. At least back then they didn't. As they've gotten older and they realize the importance of getting their history on record, they're starting to get a little more open about it. But obviously, your father spoke very little about it. But what you do know was he was a Pathfinder for the 101st Airborne.
Right. That's correct. He jumped on June the 6th, and he was St. Mary Glace is where he jumped.
Mm-hmm.
That's right away. That's right in the heart of it. And he started from there, and he worked his way from there through France and into Belgium. And I don't think he wasn't in the Battle of the Bulge, but he was just fighting in France and in Belgium.
And you also mentioned he spent a few campaigns as a glider rider as well, correct?
He mentioned a couple of times he was for ballast. They needed to test them, how many guys could. So they asked for volunteers, and he said he got him out of duty for a while, so that's why he volunteered for it.
Nice. So as those you listening who are World War II fans, obviously you noticed when Chris was talking about his boot camp, you kind of noticed that we are out of the realm of the 1940s, and there's a very important reason for that. And that is because today, this Saturday, is an anniversary of an event that Chris wants to help shine the light on. Because one, it's an important event, and this show is about history and military history. But second of all, Chris was there. And as you stated earlier, once you got your assignment, you were assigned to the Nimitz. Now, before we got to the event that we want to commemorate, if you will, let's go through a little bit of your history of your activities on this ship and the things that you're involved with.
Okay, so you got to remember, out of the 48-month enlistment, I was 45 months on the Nimitz. That means I was ship's company. So there was a lot of squadrons on board that they'd come and they go, they'd come and they go, they'd stay for the Nimitz for 4 or 5 months, then they leave, then they come back. I was ship's company, so I was on there. And it seems like all this stuff that happened just happened in this 45-month period. At first, when I got there, it was Super Bowl Sunday in January 1979. The first Liberty port was Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which was an absolute fantastic. Just picture yourself 18 years old in a sailor suit and in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. At the time, it was all the Cuban refuge, from Cuba,
Mm-hmm.
and the place was packed with young kids and girls and stuff. And just I had a blast.
Now, was that your first experience in Florida, or had you come down here
No, that
on
was
vacation?
that was my first experience in Fort Lauderdale, and on a Liberty. It was fantastic. It was a blast.
I can imagine. And so after your short Liberty in Fort Lauderdale, where'd you go?
We go out for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I think right after that, like February, the next month, they started filming a movie on the ship called The Final Countdown.
Mm-hmm.
Now, The Final Countdown, it was with Kirk Douglas, Martin Sheen, Charles Doring, Catherine Ross, James Farentino. I mean, a big movie production, and it's about the Nimitz is out doing its thing, and it turns up, it goes through some electrical storm, and it pops up on December 6th, 1941, after it goes through this electrical storm.
So that's kind of a time travel feature.
Oh, it's sci-fi.
Sure.
Absolutely. And for first, it was filmed in Norfolk. It had nothing to do with Hawaii, because,
Mm-hmm.
trust me, I was there. And so that's the whole premise of the movie. What do they do? Do we change history, or do we let everything go on? Because one Nimitz class carrier could have won World War II by itself.
Yes, and thus the butterfly effect and change in history and the way everything goes, and a big moral question comes in at that point. Now, obviously, with Hollywood, they do a lot of their filming on the sets. How much time did they actually spend shooting on site on the Nimitz for that feature?
Probably 3 weeks, 4
weeks?
weeks. They were the big cheeses were on there. The store. I got an autograph by Kirk Douglas, and every time they had general quarters, they filmed everybody going crazy. I'm in a little spot for that. I'm in a little spot in the library, and at the end of the movie, there's this thing for side boys. Side boys is when you walk on and off the ship. You're supposed to have salute all the officers. Again, I was 18 years old. I remember we got $500. Okay.
Nice, you got scale.
We got $500. Okay, they gave the dispersing guy was there. He gave us a check for $500. The guy next to him was the Navy Relief Fund,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy next to him was Liberty Passes. So the check went from my hand to the Navy Relief Fund, and I got my Liberty Pass.
Nice. So the money you earned went right to the Liberty
Not
Fund.
a nickel.
Now let me ask you this: since it was a well, not semi, it was a time traveling movie. Once the Nimitz was back in quote unquote 1940, was there a wardrobe change, or were you guys still wearing your modern day Navy uniforms? Or in the movie, did they kind of bring back the throwbacks? How did that work?
I
Do you
know
remember?
there was only a couple like the Japanese Zeros.
Yeah.
They were I remember the Japanese pilots. They were in old garb, and so was Charles Doring and Catherine Ross. I think they were the only character. The rest of us were in up to 1979 outfits.
I'll have to check that movie out. To be honest with you, I haven't heard of it until today, but it's be an interesting sci-fi movie to check out, especially considering you're in it. So after your big Hollywood debut and your check that you got for from the Screen Actors Guild for Scale, which was promptly let's say liberated from you,
Right.
where did you go to next?
It was just sequels. Everything was you'd go out touch and go. So you'd go out and how many airplanes the Tomcats could touch. They just touch and then they'd land, they'd shoot off, they'd land, they'd shoot. This was constantly going on in 1979, and we did a lot of it. A7s, I'm thinking A6s. There's two kinds of A6. One is called a queer. That's because it's a four-seater,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one is a two-seater. The queer was the one that fueled the planes.
Okay.
Okay, I mean back then we called it a queer. There was no pun intended at
Sure.
all. So the queer, you'd fuel it, and we were working on the flight deck, which is about 4.5 football fields long. That's how big the flight deck is, and if the plane turned on you at the wrong time, if you were walking say 50, 60 yards behind the plane and you shouldn't have been there, that you would just roll on the deck, and you just keep rolling
From the blast.
from the blast.
Sure.
And they had like a 10-foot screen around
Mm-hmm.
the top of the deck, and if you landed in that screen, you did okay. If you didn't land, it was 90 feet down to the water.
90 feet down into the water
Right.
from a vessel traveling at how many knots?
That was the Nimitz could go probably I'd say about 40 miles an hour. Top
Needless
speed.
to say, that would be the equivalent of landing on a street. Worst case scenario. I mean, to fall at that height, at that speed, and to hope that you have enough wits about you to be able to swim, because obviously, you may have a life preserver on, but worst case scenario, you wouldn't. In your time on that vessel, did you ever see anybody make that plunge? Or?
All the time.
Really?
And I mean, there's so many accidents that you never hear about. And when you said your life vest, so you wore the flight deck, you had headgear, you had ear gear, the goggles. You wore a thing that you just push it, and it blew up. You wore shark repellent was on it. You had a grounding wire on it, a flashlight on it. That was if you did fall in. But if you did fall in, the screws the props would get you.
Yeah.
Because there's 4 props on that on the ship, and you could see it from the space shuttle, the wake.
Sure.
That the Nimitz, it's like you could see the Great Wall of China. You could see the wake with the Nimitz. Any of those carriers.
Well, I mean, you basically have a 3-city block vessel
Yeah.
pushing through, creating a huge wake.
But the accidents happened. Guys fell overboard all the time. The arresting wire would break. Okay, when that broke, that just cut you in half.
Yeah.
Some guys would have their head up their butt and walk into an engine. They trip over a grounding wire or a chock and chain.
Now, the grounding wire, is that the wire that the planes snag the hook on when they're landing?
And that's the arresting wire.
That's the arresting wire? What's the grounding
The
wire?
I was fuels, so we fueled the planes.
Okay.
That's what we did. We fueled the planes, and every plane had to be grounded.
Okay, for static electricity.
Static electricity.
So grounding wire wasn't an acronym, it was actually a grounding wire.
And you used JP5 because in 1967 with John McCain, when he was on the Forrestal, they changed it from JP4, which was very flammable.
Is that the jet fuel?
The jet fuel.
Okay.
And JP5, you could throw a match in a bucket of JP and it won't go off.
Sure. Now, a lot of people are familiar with John McCain, obviously as a politician. A lot of people know about him and his prisoner of war stay, but he was involved in an on-deck accident.
Oh, absolutely. It all started with his plane.
You want to explain to our listening audience what happened with John and his plane?
It's a film that they make you watch in boot camp. Okay, it's mandatory. The Nimitz now is mandatory to watch in boot camp also. But McCain's plane, it was getting a hot pump. They got those things, that's the tractors that stick up to it, and they get the jet engines going. It malfunctioned. It went on fire, and there's a picture of a chief, a CPO, running up with a fire extinguisher to put it out, and within 3 seconds, the bomb blew off, on McCain's plane. I think it was next. It was either McCain or the one next to him. I'm not sure, but that started a chain reaction, and it ended up with 127 dead in 1967 on the Forrestal.
Now, was this before or after? I'm assuming this happened before he got captured, correct?
3 months before he got captured. Okay.
Talk about a bad run of luck.
Okay. So,
And a strong, well, some may say good battle of luck. The fact that he survived one accident, one horrible treatment at the prison camp. I mean, they did horrible things to him, and to have the strength and the mental fortitude to carry on after that. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of people walking away from that plane accident that damn near killed you, that would have been enough to shake a lot of people straight out of service, or at least into some sort of psychiatric evaluation for a period of time.
Yeah, I respect him for his service. I mean, I don't agree with him in his political stuff, but sure. I definitely respect him. And he was on CV-59, and the Nimitz was CVN nuclear 68. So that's how many carriers they had between 67 and 79. What they had. Not many of them around, but the Nimitz is still around. I think it's going until 2025.
And so after the filming, you hit open sea, and at a certain point you finally you crossed the equator, and you moved up in the social rank in the Navy. You didn't earn an actual physical rank, but you did step up in the social rank that goes around in amongst the Navy.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's well. It all started on November 4th of 1979 is when the Iranians took over the embassy in Tehran.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they took 52 American hostages. And at the time, Nimitz was in Venice, Italy. Great Liberty port. I mean, it was fantastic. We were having the times of our life. Boom. Next day, yanked us out on the way.
So you only got to spend maybe 18 hours, 20 hours at the most in Italy?
I had a date with some...
Oh, I'm sure you did.
Oh, man. And it never happened. The father was a professor. He was buying us beers. We were in uniform. And that never happened.
Beautiful Italian women running around.
Oh, I met all my cousins in Italy. We were on the Med cruise, which we got to see all the different countries, but that got cut short because they yanked us and we went right over. We had to go around Africa, and that's where we became a shellback when you cross the equator. Now it's a big thing in the Navy to cross the equator. It's initiation. It's a privilege. They've been doing it since Davy Jones. 200 years of Navy tradition. So when you cross the equator, before you cross it, you're considered a polywog.
Okay.
Okay. And then once you do cross it, they close down the flight deck. They close down everything for the whole day. And the uniform of the day is your underwear on backwards. They give you green ham, green eggs, green ham. You got to walk through a garbage chute where they put all garbage in this thing, and you got to crawl about 33 through this garbage chute. And they get the fattest guy they possibly can. They stick him on a throne with a crown.
No, is he in his skivvies too, or is he at least in the
uniform?
uniform?
No, I think he was in his skivvies, but he had a robe on.
Sure.
Okay, and they take catapult grease and they stick it on the stomach, and you got to come up to him on your knees and say, you got to beg forgiveness for being a polywog, and now that you're going to be a shellback.
Sure.
And then he takes you and you got to kiss his gut with the cat grease on it.
So it's bad enough you got to kiss the stomach of a obese sailor, well, as obese as a sailor becomes, but then to compound that with grease. But I'm sure with the excitement and just the whole pomp and circumstance, it was probably worth it.
Yeah. Now he was a shellback, so all these guys running,
sure.
they didn't have to go through the
sure.
because they did it 20 years before. Okay, so when we went over the Nimitz, there was 5,500 men on the ship. Okay, maybe 500 were shellbacks, maybe 10% were so the rest of us were all polywogs. So we all had to go through this initiation.
That was a long procession that day.
The whole thing. They had to mount. They had a 50-foot mountain of clothes that they.
I wonder how many times they had to reapply that grease to his stomach after you guys kissed it all off.
So it was happened on the 9th of January 1980 in the Indian Ocean. That's when it happened.
That's fantastic. The movie, the trip to Italy, your new rank and social order was just the beginning. You're about to break another record, or at least a something that hadn't happened since 1943, 44, 45.
Right.
And that was an extremely extended stay at sea.
Okay.
What was the cause for that?
Well, when we went over there, when we went over there to Iran in the Gulf of Homens, which was called Gonzo Station, we were supposed to. Washington came up with a rescue attempt, okay, and that happened in April. Okay, we were supposed to go in there and rescue the hostages. They sent 4 helicopters in. They landed in a dust storm. I mean, it was a failure. It was, the people say it was failure from day one. We don't know. We were just there. But 8 guys died in the desert. So that brought everything to a halt. And the helicopters took off from the Nimitz. And then, like a week or so after that, is when we had our 100th day at sea, which, like I said, was the first time since World War II. And they authorized 2 cans of beer per sailor. Okay.
Now, on a normal time or normal day, are enlisted sailors authorized to even consume alcohol, or is
No,
that something for the NCOs and the brass?
they stopped that in 1914.
Okay.
Okay, they haven't had allowed booze for enlisted men since 1914, which the British Navy, they do it all the time. They have pints and rum, and they've been doing that forever. So it was a big thing. 2 cans of beer down the hatch, and we had a Steel Beach picnic. That's what they used to call them, because it was on top of the flight deck. And they had, the hamburgers, the hot dogs, and the football games, and whatever we could possibly. Again, not one woman.
Yeah.
Okay, just 5,500 guys. So it was a whole different ball game back then. But we made the best of it. That was the 100. So it was 100 days at sea, and we ended up spending 144 days at sea.
Now, the day of the 2 beers and the barbecue is probably some of the best chow you had on that vessel, and since you stepped on foot on it, is
Well,
that
the
a correct
beer
assumption?
was, but I can't agree with you on the chow. The chow was always, it was never. I don't know what they do now, but man, the chow was never good on the steaks were like 6 years in the freezer. Okay.
Horse meat?
So,
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is kids complaining about their school lunches, they have nothing to complain about compared to the chow you had on the Nimitz.
I actually lost 10 pounds when I went into the Navy. I came out at 10 pounds a lot. I think I went in at 165. I came out at 155.
Wow.
So it was never, the only time it was good is when you first went out. You had fresh eggs, fresh milk, okay, for a week or 2. I mean, you're feeding 5,500 guys 3 times a day.
Sure.
I mean, the food is just
Yeah, and it's not like you're stopping in port every 2 days to re-up on the grocery list. I mean, you're surviving off of what you guys had loaded up before you left port, and you have to make it last.
and being on the Nimitz, another goal or whatever was the steam catapults came first. Okay, for showers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you had a 3-minute shower. Now they had a petty officer in charge sitting there watching you take a shower with a clock.
Now, are these saltwater showers or freshwater?
It's desalinated water.
Okay.
Okay, 3 minutes. Soap up, shut it off. Lather up for a minute. Put the water on. So it was 3 minutes. You were in and out in 3 minutes.
So you were never truly clean, especially if you're somebody who actually works in the mechanic side where you're all greased up all day. I mean, 3 minutes you can only get so much scrubbing done.
Again, there wasn't too many people to impress.
Sure.
Okay, so you did the 3 minutes there on the shower. That came first. Always the catapults came first, and the Nimitz, because it was nuclear, it had plenty of room for aviation gas. Okay, so it didn't need gas to run the ship.
Mm-hmm.
A tank of gas for the Nimitz lasts about 13 years.
Wow.
Okay, so or it had enough fuel on that ship to if we were at war, that ship could run 21 days continuously, bombing the crap out of everybody for 21 days without having to refuel for the planes. So even if the world ended, the Nimitz would still fight on for 21 days. So
That's definitely a huge achievement. Now, I don't want to digress from something very important you said. I backtracked a little bit. What was the total amount of days you guys spent consecutively at sea?
144.
Now, at what point do you start to get a little crazy, being confined to a floating city for 144 days?
I probably after. I mean, you just did, and you worked. You worked from, 3 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, and it was just you just worked. You were so fatigued, you really didn't have time to think about it. I slept in the rack for 12 hours. and then somebody else.
That's what I was going to ask, if you rotate racks.
Some guys did. We were lucky. There was only about 150 people in our little compartment, which is about the size of an average house in Cape Coral, a 1,500 square foot house. We had the racks were 3 high. Okay, and it was just that everybody worked. You were never there. You were only there to sleep, and at night the guy was there to watch you take a shower.
Now, during these 144 days, I'm assuming you guys are doing a little bit more than work detail, correct?
I don't.
Well, I mean the vessel itself. That you guys are clearly out on the open seas for 144 days because you guys were performing, I'm guessing, some sort of viable activity for servicing the Air Force, the Navy, the Army. I mean, otherwise, what would be the purpose of being out there for so long?
Well, that's because they're hostages.
Okay.
We were out there strictly for the hostages. We had to make a presence, and we were the flagship of the 7th Fleet.
So it's essentially a show of force at that point.
Oh, absolutely. There was 3 carriers out there. It was the Kitty Hawk, the Nimitz, and the Midway.
Okay.
And the Midway is like wooden decks. I mean, that's. I think it's a training thing. We were relieved by the Eisenhower, which was 69, CV-69. It was the CV. It was the Eisenhower, but we did on time, 144 days, and when we came back into port in Virginia, Carter was there. He met us. He came on board, President Carter. So I mean, I happened to be on duty that day, so I fueled this helicopter.
That's close you got to him?
Yeah, I fueled this helicopter. But I really didn't want to shake the guy's hand yet.
Yeah. Can't blame you there.
I'm not I was never a Carter fan. When Reagan came a few months later. But what I remember about that 148 days, it was unrep. All the ships would pull up to us and give us, stores and stuff like that. Okay, we take on fuel all the time, for the planes. We take on food, all kinds, and they'd shoot a shot line over. Right, you grab the shot line and then you start. And I remember, there couldn't have been maybe 40, 50 yards between us.
And you're basically transferring everything via cable and pulley systems.
Right, and if I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would have never. So we're doing it one day, and right in the middle of the two of them, a submarine pops up. Okay, if I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would have never believed it. But submarine popped up, and the guys came out and waved. And
showing off a bit, huh?
Because
there's absolutely no reason for them to pop up in between 2 large vessels, especially during an offload.
And I'm trying to. Every time we were out on the Nimitz, there was always a Russian troll.
Okay.
Around. Okay, and they had this little helicopter on board, and they'd come and circle the Nimitz and take pictures. And every time we were up there, we never ate good. We always got a box lunch, which was just a sandwich and an apple or an orange or something, and we'd throw the oranges at the helicopter because that's how close they were.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'd hit it.
Nice.
So, yeah, that's
one for the good guys. Now, the submarine was that was an American sub, right?
Oh, it's a Nimitz. You have a nuclear task force.
Okay.
You have I think the California with us and was it the Brisbane? If you have a nuclear aircraft carrier, you need a nuclear destroyer and a nuclear submarine. That was the task force, so they could all be out there at the same time.
Yeah, because obviously you don't want one that can be out there for a long time but not have anyone to provide the same length of time of protection.
Protection, that's all it is.
Because any time in the military, you're always, whether you're a foot slogger on the front lines, you're in the sky, or you're on the sea, you're always going to have a battle buddy, if you will, whether it's a huge vessel or a submarine, but there's always going to be someone there to help get the job done.
That's what they always show, the flag, fly the flag.
So today, being Saturday, is a very important day, and let's get down to the crux of this conversation. On this date, back in 1981,
37 years.
You had just, 5 days prior or 10 days prior?
11 days prior. On May 15th, they called me up. We were pulling out. Okay, we were pulling out of Norfolk. We're going out for sea calls. This is 1981. This is a year after the Iranian stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they called me up and they said, Chris, you've been doing good. You've been hustling, busting your butt. We're going to promote you to flight deck control.
Staying out of the brig?
Yeah, well, I never made the brig, which was a good thing. So they said, we're going to put you in flight deck control, which was like the cake job. That was 12 on, 12 off. That's you worked 12, and you worked in the flight deck control in the superstructure, okay, which is that thing on top of on the flight deck. When everything's flat except that thing. The first floor is flight deck control. That's where the air boss wings, and they have a glass table, and you push the planes around.
Mm-hmm.
And the air boss would come and say, "I need a hose on 101." And I learned how to write backwards because he would be over there, and I'd be writing backwards for each plane.
Sure.
We had 100 planes on the Nimitz. So and you'd have to tell which one is available, how much gas is in it, and what.
Because the majority of stuff is still analog back then.
Oh yeah.
You know, you with a grease pencil and a glass wall writing backwards. No fancy computer displays and
The sound-powered phones, and they say, "Fuels, I need a hose on 101." So I'd call up, I'd get the crew to. Now, just before this, I was on the crew. I was a crew leader. I had 3 guys. We were working Station 6, and they switched. The guy inside, his name was Dennis Driscoll. He's a good friend of mine from New Jersey. Same age, 21. I remember about Dennis. He had a humongous nose and an even bigger laugh. That's what I remember about Dennis. The guy was a great guy. We spent time together off the ship on Liberty, and he wanted to be a fireman. He wanted to get out of the V4 division. That's what I was in, V4 as a grape. He wanted to get out, so he was I don't want to do this anymore. I want to. So they switched us. They said, well, they took him out of control, and they put him back on the deck. They said, all right, you go drag hose.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were pissed with him.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So they didn't give him what he wanted. He got the transfer, but not to where he wanted
No,
to go.
he changed rank. He went from an airman to a fireman. He was an FN, not an
Okay.
AN. I was an AN. So that happened on the 15th. I got qualified in flight deck control. We go out to do the sequels, and then 11 days later is when the accident happens on the Nimitz, right off the coast of Florida.
And for those who are listening who are not familiar with the accident, could you give some details on what happened that day?
Well, it was just we just doing sequels, touch and go, and it happened. It happened at night, and there was an I think it was an A6 that came in. It came in instead of landing, and it landed off to the left, and it plowed into 4 Tomcats, and each Tomcat had a hose on it, a fueling hose,
Mm-hmm.
and each Tomcat was loaded with missiles and 50 caliber machine guns, and it started a chain reaction, and Dennis was on 6, and that's exactly where it hit. He didn't even know what hit him.
Wow.
Okay, I mean, if he was alive for 3 seconds, that would have been a lot. He got hit with this. He was 21 years old. He was the first to go, and then it ended up with 14 dead. A lot of them died from the 50 caliber machine guns shooting off. Okay, because the fuel
Mm-hmm.
it warped the deck, and by the next morning when we seen it's 14 dead, 49 injured. Okay, and I was in flight deck control, and I'm watching this on the TV with the air boss, and you're trained to, you have to call down to the pump room and say, shut the fuel off. I got to tell you what valve to shut. This is where you got to go. This 2 tack, 3 tack, Lima, all this Navy talk to go there to shut the valves off, to shut the fuel off, because you're pumping fuel up, and these guys are burning up there. I mean, it's absolute chaos on top of the flight deck for this, for this 15-20 minute period. It was chaos. And then by the next day that came, we had to push the planes off the top of the deck.
How long did it take to contain the situation that night?
No, probably, I guess it's over an hour.
Because clearly, or maybe not clearly, I don't know. I wasn't there and I'm not familiar with Navy procedure, but I'm assuming to a certain extent you kind of had to wait for the ammunition to stop actively going off before you can get out there and actively fight the fire. Otherwise, you guys would just be running into open line of fire.
Crash and Smash, they were the guys with the suits on, and
Okay.
they were in charge. They had the big crane and everything. Crash and Smash, they did that. We participated in rig the barricade drills when every time the plane came in and the tail hook was off, it had to come in and go into the net.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that happen with a Hawkeye. But that was we went into port, and it was a big thing. My parents found out about it. They didn't know. My mother told me it was the first time she ever seen my father cry. When they didn't know what was happening to me. I was 20. I was 20, going to be 21 years old. So it's just a wild thing.
I couldn't imagine. I mean, the sounds, the chaos, I mean, everything. I couldn't even begin to imagine.
And what happened was that we pulled into port, and to show the world that we could blow this off,
Mm-hmm.
we were out back at sea in 4 days.
Which really doesn't give you much time to process.
No, as we're just back out to sea. Boom. We got to.
Now, as far as the burial procedures, did you guys do the standard burial at sea, or did they take the bodies back to the families? How did that whole
I was
procedure?
supposed to be the Navy, the guy to go up with the body for Dennis in New Jersey, but I went home. I went home for 3 days, and I was UA for 3 days. So when I came back, I got captain's mast, and I think Hillebrand, Fred Hillebrand, he went up for Dennis Driscoll in New Jersey, and he was the Navy's, the guy to show up for the funeral procession. A bunch of us went home, and we all got captain's mast. I got 45 days restriction, 45 days extra duty.
So you're absent without leave?
For 3 days, yeah. I went home to see my family.
Process?
I tried to, and in the meantime, the Navy was trying to push this off as, it was the crewmen's fault or something. They were all on dope.
Yeah, when I was I didn't want to bring that up because, obviously the whole concept of doing this podcast today and the whole reason that we stepped out of the World War II bounds was to focus the remembrance on what happened and those who lost their lives. But when I was researching that, I did come across a few stories of saying, I guess, how many died overall?
14 dead, 49 injured.
And they're saying, I guess, like 4 of them had traces of marijuana in their systems and stuff like that.
It was pilot error.
Yeah.
The pilots were fatigued. That's what it came down to. I mean, if somebody was there, and I don't know about reports or conspiracy theories, the pilots were spent.
Sure.
Just like the rest of us were. When you work 14, 15, 16 hours a day doing constantly touch and go, touch and go, touch and go.
When it happened, it was at nighttime. Do you remember vaguely around what time?
I think it was like 10, 11 o'clock at night.
And how many hours consecutively have you guys been running this drill? Were you guys going all day? Did you just get started? And you said they're burnt out.
You go from 3 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
You get 4 or 5 hours in the rack, and if you get lucky to get a shower.
Sure.
Okay, but they only, again, if you get the shower, the guy watching you. So, I mean, it's a long time ago, and and I want to focus on these poor guys who never came back, especially Dennis. The guy at 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
The guy had his whole life ahead of him. But that's what you do when you sign your paper, when you raise your hand, and I swear to protect the Constitution of the United States, foreign and domestic, whether it's an accident, whether you serve with George Washington, or whether you serve with Donald Trump,
mm-hmm.
and everything in between. You take that chance, and that's just, most people know that.
Yep.
I mean, that's all I could say.
Well, I appreciate you coming out today and helping us honor the memory of those who passed in the accident. Clearly, policy changes have been put forth because, as you stated previously when we were talking about John McCain, you're saying now that when you're going through the Navy, they basically work this accident into the training and how to prevent it.
I've been on the Nimitz once. I think we went in 1998. It seemed 20 years ago, and it was a whole different ball game. It was co-ed. They had like email. There was like a Starbucks on it. And the food was great. And we've been to everywhere from Israel to Egypt to Italy to Germany to England to Spain. I forgot a couple. Tunisia. Okay, when we were in England, we went into the Arctic Circle. That's when I became a blue nose. That's another thing. If you sail inside the Arctic Circle, you get a certificate that says you're a blue nose, which was, the waves. We tilted. I think if you went 21 degrees, the Nimitz would tilt over. We were at 14 degrees, so we were almost there. Just to see how much you could take, And this was all during the Cold War.
So were you out on the flight deck?
Oh yeah.
So there was a little bit of pomp and circumstance and
tradition
for that?
Not on that. No,
you're just out there working, taking a beating from the weather doing your daily job.
Yeah, the shellback. You're at the equator. It's hot and sunny and nice out. Up there, it's the other way around. Icebergs and stuff, and it's freezing.
You're in your winter gear.
So and we were in the HMS Victory, which is in Portsmouth, England. That's where the HMS. That's where Admiral Nelson is, a big Navy town over there. I got my tattoo of my American Eagle in Portsmouth.
Nice.
Okay, so my mother hated it, but
how old were you when you got that?
20. EP20. We were in England, and I remember we go into a bar, and the Limeys would sing. We got a special song for the Yanks, and it was something like a World War II movie. They would sing us a song and welcome the Yanks, and then we go out and we drink with them and have a good time and stuff. So good camaraderie there. We were in Israel, and they gave you the shirt off your back. Okay, I remember walking in the uniform. The car would pull over and said, "You guys need a ride to town?" I'd say, "Sure." They'd say, "All right." They kick the people out of the back seat and put the Americans in.
There you go.
Get out, you walk. And I was like, no, that's cool. We'll give you a ride. Don't worry about it. The opposite in Egypt. It was nasty. It was a sandbox. Everybody was depressed.
Yeah.
Walking around with camels. It was just depressed. Nobody had a smile on their face. That's what I remember about Egypt.
Well, and that's one of the extra benefits of being in the military and traveling around the world. You truly gain a appreciation for home.
Perspective, absolutely.
Now, clearly, once again, as I stated in past episodes, I've never been in the military, so I'm not trying to put across the assumption that I have, but I have a friend of mine who, a couple years ago, after his father passed away, he decided to take a break from his daily life, and he went on a hike across to Vietnam and areas in that part of the world. And when he came back from that 6-week sabbatical, his demeanor and his outlook towards the politics and what's going on in our country had flipped completely 360. And he basically said, if you think we got problems here, I might suggest you go elsewhere for a little bit and recalibrate your senses. And when you come home, you will appreciate the things that you've taken for granted in the past. And you will realize that a majority of your problems, when it comes to the bigger scale, isn't shit. You got people to this day in villages trying to find clean water, trying to find sanitary places to offload their offload, if you will, and let alone find food and support your family.
That's right. Your kids, a pair of shoes.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, it's not the the perfect system, the American system, but trust me, I know because I've been there. It is the best. It is the best system.
And as I've said on maybe past episodes of this one or the podcast I do with my friend Dave, you got to look at the United States like the Yankees. Everybody's mad at the Yankees. Why are they mad at the Yankees? Because the Yankees win. The United States has been able to do in 280 years what countries over in Europe haven't been able to pull off in thousands. I mean, in the big scheme of things, the existence of this country on this planet, on the big timeline, when you look at Rome, how long Italy's been around, the monarchy over in Europe, France, China, Japan, all those civilizations have been around a hell of a lot longer than we have. But we've been able to pull off something incredible in a little shy of 300 years.
We're the new kids on the block.
And we're successful. And that's why everybody hates the Yankees. And that's why everybody hates us.
Well, I agree with you on that, but I have a special hate for the Yankees because I'm from Queens, and I'm a Mets fan. I'm from Rosedale, Queens, and the Mets were born and raised in Flushing, New York. So
I have no dog in the baseball fight, but I just know that everybody hates the Yankees. And if you want to go the football route, the Patriots too. I mean, you win and you win and you win.
They're always winning.
And a few years ago, I was explaining to somebody, not to get off into politics, but when especially in this country, people seem to be we seem to be beating ourselves up. And the reference I was using one time in a conversation, it would be like we were winning the world's cooking championship for 250 years. And everybody's getting pissed because our cookies kept winning. And we started to feel bad about it, so we decided to change the recipe.
Yeah.
If the recipe works.
Yeah.
If there's a little too much salt, fine, we'll back off on the salt. Not enough sugar, we'll add a little sugar. Our recipe ain't perfect, but it's the best on the menu.
And people have to, again, this Memorial Day, people have to recognize the military, what they do. They don't know a lot about it. I'll give you an example. We were off the coast of Libya. We were doing our thing, and Muammar Gaddafi was there, and he's put up two SS-22s, and the Americans shot him down. We shot 2 planes down, okay? And I got a T-shirt that says U.S. 2, Libya nothing. Now, we pulled into port, and the press came on board and said, we want to see the planes that shot down, the Libyan planes. And all the brass said, oh, yeah, those are those 2 right over there. And they were the brand new planes, right? Which had nothing to... What really shot them down was those 2 crappy ones, like, it was like a 77 Granada. It was nothing.
Yeah.
That's the one. Our worst plane. It needed a paint job. They didn't want to... They said, no, go show them those new ones.
Well, not only that, but show them the new ones so that we can get a bigger budget to buy more of the new ones. Because that's, when it comes to that, it's all about trying to get more budget stamp to buy more heavy gear.
I remember you got $55 extra a month for working on the flight deck.
Hazard pay?
Hazard pay. I got hazard pay for when I was on,
$55 a month?
Yeah.
Small increase since 1944, when your dad was getting 25 for jumping out of that airplane.
Right, yeah, a perfectly good airplane.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. Chris, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for bringing to light what happened on this day in 1981.
May 26, 1981. If you Google it, you'll see it. It's right off the coast of Florida, and it's for all the Navy people. It's haze gray and underway, as they say in the Navy. And remember, don't forget what the Navy stands for. Never again volunteer yourself. NAVY. That's what they do.
And on that note, thank you all for joining us. I'm Don Abernathy. This is What's the Scuttlebutt podcast. Yes, we are a World War II based podcast, but I felt it was important for this weekend to have Chris in here and to share the memories of those he served with who perished on the day of the accident, and take some time off from work and our busy schedules to be appreciative of what we have and what was gained and earned by those who fight for our freedom. Armstrong, Elwood M., Captain, United States Marine Corps, Havelock, North Carolina. Barnhart, Thomas E., Airman Apprentice, United States Navy. 18, Cleveland, Ohio. Colin, Alberto, Airman, United States Navy. 21, Brooklyn, New York. Cragen, Lawrence D., First Lieutenant, United States Marine Corps, Cherry Point, North Carolina. Driscoll, Dennis R., Fireman, United States Navy. 21, Irvington, New Jersey. Gothard, Jackie L., Airman Recruit, United States Navy. 22, Casper, Wyoming. Hynosia, Arturo, Airman, United States Navy. 25, San Antonio. Inetti, Peter R., Airman Recruit, United States Navy. 21, Oakdale, Massachusetts. Iser, Robert W., Petty Officer 3rd Class, United States Navy. 22, Richfield, Minnesota. Lewis, Patrick D., Airman, United States Navy. 21, Westland, Michigan. McLaurin, Louis J., Petty Officer 3rd Class, United States Navy. 22, Laurel, Mississippi. Swider, Frank J., Airman Apprentice, United States Navy, Providence, Rhode Island. White, Steve E., First Lieutenant, United States Marine Corps, Patrick's Air Force Base, Florida. Wildermuth, Ronald, Airman, United States Navy. 19, Westerville, Ohio.